My name is Troy Firebrace. I'm a Yorta Yorta man, and today I'm here to teach you guys about Aboriginal art, in particular Aboriginal symbols, and looking deeply into visual language and essentially how I use visual language in my artwork and pretty much putting all the concepts together. When it comes to Aboriginal symbols, essentially all it is just simple shapes that mean things. To pretty much break it down, the first shape that we all know, that we all see and understand, is that one, which is A. Now, obviously when it comes to having simple shapes and we put them together, we start to develop a word. And obviously we put words together, we start to form, essentially creating a sentence, and then sentences create obviously stories, putting together paragraphs, so on and so forth. So you know pretty much how that all works, yes? So when it comes to Aboriginal symbols, it's essentially the same. So the first symbol that we always see in some of the artworks is this one, which represents people. And obviously with our first symbol, we can add in the next letter, which is this funny looking circle. This funny looking circle can be anything from a campfire to a table. It can be anything that you would like. Anything that entices someone to sit with other people to talk. And this symbol is what we call the meeting place symbol. The concept behind this is essentially it's just about sharing stories, talking about what you did that day or what are you going to do tomorrow. And this is what creates that conversation. The next symbol is this one, which is my favourite symbol. This represents landmarks. I always say landmarks because this could be a campsite, this could be a waterhole, this could be a mountain, depending on what is in the landscape that marks the land. Now, those who are good with maps, you should be good at describing where things are. So when you ask your friend where they live and they respond that they live down 42 McIntosh Street, a lot of you will say, I have no idea where that is. So sometimes your friend will draw a mud map, which is essentially using the landmarks in the landscape to describe where they live. It could be, if you start this roundabout here, you go down the road, you'll pass KFC on the left, keep going, turn left, down a road that has like a red fence at the front, and my house is a house with the green car. And there we start creating a map. So now that we understand how the concept of Aboriginal symbols work, what we need to do, we need to dive into that whole idea, the way of thinking. And essentially what we want to pretty much create today is a way for you guys to use your everyday symbols to create your own stories. Let's look at, say for example, a circle. So a circle can be many things. It can be, it can represent an orange, it can represent yourself, it can represent a family, it can represent a journey, a direction, the moon, the sun, so on and so forth. But in this case for me, it's going to represent, say, a waterhole. And obviously with that shape, I want to utilise a river. And so this is another shape. So again, going back to that concept of A, N and B makes An. And we start to put letters together to create a story. Now your visual language can have many things. It can have simple shapes like this. We can add in images or symbols that might represent people. And you can already start to see that, obviously we have this kind of river looking thing, we have this body up here that it starts at and then it kind of moves downwards, and we have these small kind of circles here. Then we start to look at, after we have all that, we start to dive into what our story is. So for this case, the story is about how the water at the top of the mountain comes down, creating a stream, creating a river, and as it flows down, it passes on or provides nutrients and kind of sustenance for the people downstream. In a way, for Yorta Yorta people, living on the river is an important aspect of life, hence why Yorta Yorta people are considered river people. And the water and the river brings down the nutrients for the families to live and prosper. Now, when we finish with our simple drawing or our kind of, I guess our shapes or our letters, we can decorate that. Just like with letter A, we can decorate that or transform it into something that's unique or to your style. And that's the important aspect of this, creating your style. For me, I usually chuck in a lot of pattern work or symbols, and obviously patterns is a part of Aboriginal culture. Patterns is essentially a close-up view of the natural environment. It's what you see up close. If you were to take a look at wood grain, have a look at the actual individual lines that create the wood grain itself. Rocks, it could be pebbles, it could be how plants are kind of gathered together, or even a close-up of a leaf or a flower. So in this case for me, I like to use the river mussel pattern, which is a close-up image of the back of a river mussel, which is structured out in a series of arches. And I usually use that to fill the page, to kind of match the story, and that's the important bit. The pattern that you find in that landscape where you are looking or walking the dog or looking at a mountain exploding, that's the pattern that you want to create. You know, for Yorta Yorta people, the rainbow serpent that created the Murray, as the serpent came down from the sky, went through the actual country, carved into the ground because it was a massive snake. And as it was carving through the ground, a huge rain began and it filled the Murray River up, created the Dungala, which is essentially Yorta Yorta for the wide river or the Murray River. So guys, this is my finished drawing. So you can see I filled the whole page with different types of pattern works. These pattern works is what you would see out in the bush or on the Murray. So again, start at the mountain top, the water goes downstream or down the mountain, fills the rivers and brings all its nutrients to the families living on the riverbanks. So again, obviously we've got the river mussel pattern, we've got the pattern that you would see in the trees. We've got the boundary pattern here as well, so that represents some things that some places you can go, some places you can't go when you are camping, especially at night. And as well as a few other patterns that represent, you know, grasses and crisscross patterns, and obviously with the sandbar as well, just a type of ripples in the sand that you see from the water. Some of the things you can draw and you can create a story with just using simple symbols. And the main person behind the story is yourself. And how you tell that story and the kind of enthusiasm you put into that story comes from you directly utilising your voice and the visual image to help you tell your story. Thank you for today. If you guys would like to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, feel free to add me or follow me, as well as check out my website, firebracedesigns.com. It should be on the screen. Other than that, thank you for today and enjoy.